you're trying to increase your score for the October SAT, you're trying to do better than your last SAT, or it's the first one that you're going for and you're trying to one up your practice exams, you need to figure out the most effective use of your time. What can you do in the least amount of time that's going to give you the most results? So I'm going to give you that framework today. And just a note, I was preparing for the SAT similar to you. And, I 3 to 4 weeks before an exam, that was my definition of cramming. I was cramming at that portion. And what I mean by that was I was ramping up the amount of work that I was doing, right? And I remember this conversation that I had pretty recently where someone said, dude, that's not real cramming. I prepared 12 hours prior to my SAT and learned a bunch of new topics. That's what really cramming is, right? But it's both the same in the same way that one person 12 hours before and one person 3 weeks before starts to ramp up their like level of seriousness. It's just when they did it. So what you describe as cramming, I think isn't time specific, but it's actually just specific to how much more effort that you're putting in. So if you want to start cramming 3, 4 weeks, even 2 months before your SAT, that's when you got to do it. So hi, I'm Karthik. This is how to improve your English SAT score the fastest if you're trying to get the biggest improvement. All right, so the easiest way to get more progress. And this seems so obvious, but there's actually a specific way that you need to apply this skill. It's to do more. You literally have to do more, right? Because if I do more in the same period of time, like we all have the same 24 hours in a day, but if I just use more of my day for SAT prep and I do that consistently, I'm going to be better performing than a person who uses less time, right? But that seems extremely obvious, but how you actually apply it, right? How can you do it in a reasonable manner that actually would get you more progress than before? What you're going to do is you're going to set your calendar, right? How much time do you have until your next SAT? When are all of your like committed activities like school, sports, family dinner, right? What are all those things you just can't miss that you have to do? Mark all of those and mark all those times. Now figure out all the empty time blocks and how much you want to commit. How much are you committing now, first of all? And then how much more could you squeeze out? Just a little bit. It doesn't have to be very significant. It could be literally 10 more minutes a day, right? And over the period of 30 days, that's not nothing, right? It is going to get you more progress than if you didn't do that. And you can slowly increase it more and more as you're getting closer to your SAT. And, you get that tunnel vision and you can push other things out of the way more. You have more motivation to do that. So count down the days, create your calendar, and just commit to doing more time over the course of your entire duration until your SAT. Commit to just doing more time within that time period, and you're going to do progressively more work in the same time period than a person who would have never done this activity, right? And how do you do more effective work? If there were two people, right? Hypothetically, there's two people. Just imagine, right? And one of them just works for like they work 1 hour a day, but the other person also works 1 hour a day, right? But one person, they just take practice exams, they take practice tests, and they just keep doing that. They never review, they never know what to work on. They don't have a way of prioritizing what to work on. But the other person learns from their mistakes. They constantly practice their weak points, know what to do, like have a framework for constantly retesting their weak points, and they will get a much bigger improvement for the same amount of work in the same amount of time than the person who never does the effective work. So how do we create this framework for ourselves? And I'm going to give you something here that you can just so easily follow that's not going to change much about how you prepare. And it's just going to make you so much more effective for the time that you're already sacrificing to put in, right? And it's this idea, like practicing that way as the first person who is just doing practice preps is like pretty much useless. It's not effective. It's not going to give you the score you want. You're just wasting your time if you're doing that. Use the learning mastery method. I talk about this method so much, but it's the most useful thing I've like ever done and like found, like came upon by complete chance, right? And this is idea that, you basically have a learning portion, right? So you're going to take a practice test and you're going to figure out what questions you get wrong. And you're going to figure out whether that's like a careless mistake or whether it's something that you just literally didn't know, right? If you literally don't know it, then that means you need to focus on learning, right? You need to focus on learning the skill that would help you get good at that. And you need to consult online resources, people who are more experienced than you. That's the only way you're going to learn something new. You can't learn something new just from your head, right? But where you can do anything just from your head without consulting consulting outside resources, is practicing. Practice the same skill with the knowledge that you have learned and do it again and again and again. If you do it just a bunch of times, that's how you get better. You won't notice the progress day to day, but week by week, month to month, you might not have months, but week by week. And if you do more work in 1 week than someone does in 1 month, then your week is the same as someone else's month. So you can literally have months of work within the weeks that you're preparing for the SAT if you use the calendar method, right? So practice yourself doing it again and again, practice again and again. And that's how you reach the mastery stage where you master that skill and you almost never get it wrong. Maybe you might get it wrong very like once in a while, and then you'll just practice it more and then you never get it wrong, and then retest everything, and the ones that you get wrong, repeat this pattern until you should retest regularly regardless of whether you've achieved mastery or not, but just do it regularly so you can constantly go through this learning, practice, mastery thing. And that is such an effective framework. And you don't have to follow it perfectly. You don't have to have the perfect method, right? But commit to making your method better over time. Commit to doing more practice, figuring out what your weak points are. Because if you are just 10% better, right, than you were like before you watch this video, that is going to compound in effective work because you're doing the same amount of work, if not a little bit more, but a much more effective method. It's like instead of getting like 1 point for every like 10 hours that I work, I'm getting 1 SAT point for every 5 hours that I work. So this is arguably the most like best portion of this video because you're going to get more effective use out of your time. Okay. Grammar specific skills, right? So if you're struggling with the grammar section and you should be getting a perfect in the grammar section, arguably the reading section is the only one where there's 1 or 2 questions that are always going to be extremely difficult, and it's getting a perfect on that would take an unreasonable amount of time to do and to commit to. But in grammar, getting a perfect is actually not very unreasonable because it's just knowing all the skills, right? And that's literally it. Knowing all the grammar rules / skills that are tested on the SAT. You can find a list online on the SAT website, but it's literally that simple. Because if you know all the rules and you've mastered all the rules, like you know all of the specific rules, you've memorized it, and then you've practiced it a bunch in like practical problems, and you've noticed any gaps you have, you've relearned the skill, you fix them, that's where you excel in the grammar portion. Just encounter your mistakes, learn from them, practice them, make sure they don't happen again. If you do that thousands of times, I can guarantee that you will never get anything wrong in grammar, right? Because it makes sense if you just go over the things that you get wrong over a long period of time, or just not even necessarily time, but just a long period of doing work, right? Because you can compress a lot of work in a short period of time. And if you just achieve doing this, right, this framework and this mindset of just you're going to do it until you get it right, you're not going to get any mistakes on grammar. That's pretty much how it is. You practice until you're perfect. So reading specific skills, right? So reading doesn't necessarily have a skill, so it's even more focused on practice, right? With grammar, you learn the skill and you practice, and it's actually easier to get a perfect score. With reading, like the amount of practice that you have to do to improve is so much more. It's actually way harder to improve in reading. That's why it tends to be generally considered the hardest section, but it is at the same method like practicing, right? So here are some specific things you can do for reading to help you improve. Know whether you're practicing with a timer or a stopwatch, right? So either you're going to time yourself specifically and learn what you did wrong that way, but what you should do, in my opinion, is first go through the passage with a stopwatch and then see if you fit the time, right? See if you're underneath the time and you also fit the like amount of detail you're able to give every single problem, right? So know if your ability to fit the time is there with the stopwatch, and then you can start using the timer and then run it through. But if you can't fit the time, you should focus on getting better by just practicing with the stopwatch, and you'll naturally be faster as you practice more and more because you'll get a little bit faster on every single question. And after almost 52 questions, you're going to get so much better in terms of like shaving off, 10 seconds off of every question just because you're getting better, right? And also you get better based off of volume and accurate guidance, right? And what I mean by that is you get better by doing more, right? And knowing why your answers are incorrect. So you can consult outside guidance for this. You can use Khan Academy and use practice exams for this, but you can also get accurate guidance from yourself by just reviewing the whole passage like out after you've taken the exam, just reviewing it again with a fresh set of eyes, knowing what the right answer is, and you can figure out why it's correct and better than yours actually, just by yourself. So it's possible to do by yourself. So test with accurate tests like College Board official exams, College Board official partners for exams like Khan Academy, and use like an effective method like this and an effective method to review your mistakes, and you're going to improve, right? And also, there's no secret thing. There is no secret method, something that's going to instantly improve your score, as you know, you probably want. And, you know, if there was something, I'd be the first person to tell you about it. I promise you, right? But the only thing that's really going to improve your score a significant amount is just a huge amount of practice, implementing that effective strategy for not only reviewing mistakes, but learning them, and then knowing what sections need a kind of preparation and actually doing it. Thank you guys so much, and I hope you learned something today.